we're talking about a lot of stuff. We're talking about mainframe, we're talking about RPA, we're talking about modernization. These are huge concepts. They're dynamic. They're going to change a lot in the coming months. How do you see these all interacting with each other?
So a lot of this starts, like I say, and ladders off of the digital transformation narrative, right? So automation in and of itself is usually in support of larger transformation needs that a client may have. And so when we look at this, one of the things that, we see a lot of the straight through processing that clients may be looking for, and the ability for orchestration across various enterprise systems. A lot of times you're able to do that with an API layer already. And so when we see that happening, we tend to put RPA a little bit at the lower end, right? We'll do those things that aren't exposed as APIs at this point. But when we look into the mainframe's, relatively opaque. And so that narrative that has really driven RPA into the forefront of the CIOs, COOs, and CPOs, mind share is, okay, well, now how do we actually look at this as a way to help keep our mainframe and our data, look at the way that we can actually do that modernization in place that, Russ, you were talking about, using RPA. And so when we look at that thread, tying that digital transformation through and the need for straight-through processing, along the way there is a little bit of a break when it comes to the mainframe, and that's where you'll start seeing a flood of RPA-driven mainframe data access activity. And, Russ, you talk about that flood all the time, right? And that is where we really are seeing the parallel drive in the number of automations that are accessing the mainframe, with the parallel increase in demand for that data that is in the mainframe. And if we can't get it out with an API, we're going to end up doing it with an RPA and with an emulator. And I just have to say that, our clients, they're very happy with the results, because we're talking to the claims administrator in the function. They love the fact that they're now able to get their claims and their customer information all in one place with an RPA, but they are not thinking about what it would be, what the impact is on the mainframe. So I see this being driven very heavily by the client's needs for digital transformation and the access to the data to feed that digital transformation.
Yeah, let me dovetail on that, because the first thing that I always like to assure our customers and that when it comes to RPA and the mainframe is, we think RPA is good. I mean, we think it's a technology that holds really good promise for organizations, achieving some really good, efficient outcomes in terms of efficiencies and potentially costs. But as Ben just said, they really need to see the whole picture. Now, we're kind of the folks who get involved in the dirty details, where we actually have analytics tools to watch and observe the way in which RPA platforms are interacting with the mainframe. And that really does influence our view here. So while we, on the one hand, say we think RPA is an outstanding, it's a technology, an approach, a platform that can create really good organizational outcomes. On the other hand, what we would say is, however, the way you choose to handle those interactions with the mainframe at scale is a real issue. Now, and that's really where what we view as the hidden tripwire. The hidden tripwire, when it comes to at the intersection of mainframe and RPA, is the method, the means of how that integration is performed. When you open up the typical top tier RPA product and look at the tools and technologies at your disposal, you will without a doubt find a terminal emulator component, and that has some either excellent screen scraping or okay screen scraping capabilities, right? But either way, it leads the customer to originally conceive of and approach their first mainframe integration or RPA project using that emulation and screen scraping technology. Now, that might be okay for doing a proof of concept. But what happens is the organization, those POC projects go into production. Once they're in production, they get spread throughout the organization. And the next thing you know it, you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of new transactions running on the mainframe. And it's not necessarily the most optimal way to achieve that workload. So we, both in our analytics componentry as well as our integration componentry, what we look for are those use cases where we can optimize that, right? And because what we want to do is eliminate that hidden cost.